welcome to Everlasting.
Get me some bitch interviews now.
At its peak, the Bachelor finale pulled 26 million viewers. By 2025, that number had dropped below 2.5 million. But ratings weren't what killed The Bachelorette. Behind the scenes, producers were manipulating contestants through sleep deprivation and isolation. A former producer compared working there to a vegan hired at a slaughterhouse. The show's own creator left after bullying investigations, and at least 10 former contestants have died, several by suicide. Then came March 2026. A video surfaced involving the new Bachelorette lead, and within hours, ABC did something it had never done before. It pulled a completed season off the air permanently. The Bachelor first hit TV in 2002. Mike Fleiss created it, and it didn't just become a show, it became a machine that knew how to pull people in and keep them watching. The Season 2 finale pulled 25.9 million viewers, and the franchise never reached that number again. Still, for about 10 years it stayed huge, often averaging more than 10 million viewers a season. The Bachelorette followed in 2003, Bachelor in Paradise arrived in 2014, and at its peak, the whole brand was estimated to bring in about $86 million in ad revenue per season. From the outside, it looked like roses, fancy dates, and fairy tale endings. The more you look, the more it feels like the romance was only the wrapper. Behind the scenes, the engine ran on pressure. Former producer Sarah Gertrude Shapiro, who worked on the show for 4 seasons, described it as like a vegan getting hired to work in a slaughterhouse. She told The New Yorker her job involved complicated manipulation through friendship. The idea was simple: get close to contestants, earn their trust, then steer them in ways that make good television, not good decisions. Sleep deprivation was part of it. Bad advice was part of it. And on the night before an elimination, she would even tell someone who was about to be sent home, "I'm going to lose my job for telling you this, but he's going to pick you. He's going to propose." It wasn't kindness. It was a spark meant to light a fire. She even kept jalapenos hidden in her jacket so she could dab her eyes and cry on cue, because when a producer cries, contestants often cry too. Those years became the seed for Unreal, the dark drama that ran on Lifetime from 2015 to 2018. Former contestants called it scary accurate. Still, the real stories that later came out were rougher than fiction. Journalist Amy Kaufman laid out even more in her 2018 bestseller Bachelor Nation, and the details make the whole thing feel colder. Supervising producer Scott Jeffries kept a wad of $100 bills in his pocket and offered bounties. First producer to make someone cry gets $100. Producer Ben Hatta confirmed production tracked contestants' menstrual cycles and scheduled emotional interviews around them, because women on their periods were seen as more willing to confess their love. Kaufman also reviewed contestant binders from Jesse Palmer's 2004 season, and those binders listed each woman's exploitable vulnerabilities right beside her name and hometown. It wasn't hidden. It was organized. Then came the edit, and that is where reality could be bent into whatever shape the story needed. Editors used frankenbiting, splicing audio to change what someone seemed to say or mean. One editor told Kaufman, "There's no allegiance to what happened in reality. The only things that are definitely happening are the rose ceremonies." Contestants had already signed away power long before they stepped out of the limo. Their contracts gave producers the right to change, add to, take from, edit, translate, reformat, or reprocess the footage. They faced a $5 million penalty if they spoiled outcomes, and they were forced into mandatory arbitration that waived their right to a jury trial. And for about 3 months, They were unpaid volunteers cut off from phones, the internet, books, and music. You can start to see why so many people came out the other side feeling used, because the setup wasn't just stressful, it was designed to make people easier to push. While that machine kept rolling, another pattern stayed locked in place for years, and it was hard to ignore once people started counting. For 33 straight seasons across The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, from 2002 through 2016, every lead was white. The one exception was Juan Pablo Galavis, a Venezuelan-American who led Bachelor Season 18 in 2014 and later made headlines after saying gay people were more pervert, in a sense. Even when the franchise was so big it felt untouchable, the sameness at the center never changed. And when people challenged it, the show didn't bend. In April 2012, two black men, Nathaniel Claybrooks and Christopher Johnson, filed a federal class action lawsuit, saying the show intentionally excluded people of color from lead roles. The case was dismissed. U.S. District Judge Aleta Trauger said casting decisions were protected by the First Amendment, called the plaintiff's goals laudable, and said she could not force race-neutral casting. Around the same time, Mike Fleiss told Entertainment Weekly in 2011, "We really tried, but sometimes we feel guilty of tokenism. Oh, we have to wedge African-American chicks in there." That line alone tells you a lot about how the franchise saw the problem and how little it wanted to change the way it worked. Then, in 2017, 15 years into the franchise, Rachel Lindsay became the first Black Bachelorette, Season 13. Later, she pointed out how wild that timeline was. We are on 45 presidents, and in 45 presidents, there's been one black president. You are almost on par to say you're more likely to become the president of the United States than you are a black lead in this franchise. Even on her season, the show leaned into conflict in a way that felt planned. Producers cast Lee Garrett, a Nashville singer-songwriter whose deleted tweets compared the NAACP to the KKK and mocked Black Lives Matter. Lindsay later wrote on Reddit, "I really think Lee was cast to add controversy, and they also knew I would not pick him." It wasn't just messy. It felt intentional, like the show was willing to use her as a moment, but still protect the old formula. That tension finally exploded into a full public reckoning in February 2021 during Matt James's season, The First Black Bachelor. Photos surfaced of frontrunner Rachel Kirkconnell at an antebellum plantation-themed fraternity, formal in 2018. People wanted accountability, and instead, the franchise tried to smooth it over. Chris Harrison, the face of the show for 19 years, sat down with Rachel Lindsay on Extra, and the interview went off the rails. He asked, "Well, Rachel, is it a good look in 2018? Or is it not a good look in 2021? Because there's a big difference." He called critics the woke police and asked for grace toward Kirkconnell. Lindsay answered plainly, "It's not a good look ever. She's celebrating the Old South." And in that moment, you could feel the mask slip, because it was no longer about a single contestant. It was about what the franchise had been willing to excuse for years. The fallout hit fast. Harrison posted an Instagram apology saying, "By excusing historical racism, I defended it." Then went on Good Morning America, in what many later described as the nail in the coffin. By June 2021, his exit was permanent. Reports said he received a mid-range 8-figure payout, and his attorney had reportedly threatened to unleash the Shiva of lawsuits exposing a swath of The Bachelor's alleged dirty laundry if the settlement was not enough. Meanwhile, Rachel Lindsay took the heat in a way that shows how ugly these moments can get. She faced racist harassment so severe, she deactivated her Instagram. Her co-host Van Lathan defended her publicly and said, "Get a few in life, seriously." Rachel is not responsible for Chris Harrison, a 49-year-old man who can't read the room. The franchise had finally stepped into the light, and it did not look prepared for what people could see. And that is only one layer of the damage, because the human cost around this world is heavier than most viewers realize. At least 10 former contestants have died, many in deeply tragic ways. Gia Aleman, from Bachelor Season 14 and 2 seasons of Bachelor Pad, died by suicide on August 14, 2013, at age 29. Julian Hugg from Jillian Harris's Bachelorette season was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in November 2010 at age 35. Clint Arliss from Caitlin Bristow's 2015 season died by suicide in January 2022 at age 34. Tyler Guazds, who abruptly left Hannah Brown's season in 2019, died of opioid toxicity on January 22, 2020, at age 29. When you put those stories next to a show built around stress, isolation, and public judgment, it becomes hard to pretend it is just entertainment. Even the basic promise of safety has been shaky, because the vetting process has failed again and again in ways that feel unreal until you see the names. Lincoln Adam, who appeared on Becca Kufrin's Season 14 of The Bachelorette in 2018, had been convicted of indecent assault and battery after groping a woman on a Boston Harbor cruise 1 week before the season premiere aired. He still wasn't removed and stayed on screen for weeks. Warner Brothers claimed no one knew about the conviction. Later, Joshua Tyler Best from Katie Thurston's 2021 season was arrested in February 2023 on 15 counts of possession of child sexual abuse material. Each time, it raises the same question: how does someone slip through, and what does the show check for when the cameras are about to roll? Then there are stories where the danger didn't stop when filming ended. Colton Underwood, the Bachelor Season 23 lead in 2019, was revealed in 2020 to have stalked his winner Cassie Randolph after their breakup. Randolph got a restraining order and alleged he placed a GPS tracking device on her car, showed up outside her bedroom window at 2 a.m., and sent anonymous harassing texts from burner phones to both Cassie and himself, acting like there was a third-party stalker. He later admitted to sending the texts, and in April 2021 he came out as gay on Good Morning America and apologized to Randolph. It was the kind of story that makes you look back at the edited romance and wonder what was hidden in plain sight. Even in the newer era, the pattern doesn't feel gone. Devin Strader, who won Jen Tran's 2024 Bachelorette season, was later reported to have been arrested in 2017 on felony simple burglary of an inhabited dwelling. His ex-girlfriend had a restraining order and alleged he put her in a chokehold covering my mouth, spit on her at a basketball game, and burned the physical restraining order outside her home. After their engagement, he dumped Tran by phone. The details are messy, but the through line is clear. The franchise keeps saying it has learned, yet it keeps letting stories like this walk right onto the screen. And then came the moment that almost shut the whole thing down. In June 2017, during the first day of filming Bachelor in Paradise Season 4, Corinne Olympios and Demario Jackson had a sexual encounter in a pool while both were heavily intoxicated. A producer filed a misconduct complaint, questioning whether Olympios could consent. Production stopped and was suspended for 2 weeks. Olympios later called it "my worst nightmare." Warner Brothers eventually said its investigation found no misconduct occurred, but the damage was already done, because the story wasn't just about what happened in a pool. It was about how fast a show built on alcohol, pressure, and blurred boundaries can tip into something that feels dangerous. Jackson later talked about the racial dynamics too, saying, "They wanted the angry black guy and this little, innocent white girl, but it wasn't that." Afterward, a supposed 2-drink-per-hour limit was put in place, though people still dispute how well it has been enforced. It is hard to fix a mess that starts at the top, because everything underneath it slowly learns to live with the mess. That is what people inside the Bachelor world have been describing for years. And the first big public crack showed up in July 2019, when Mike Fleiss's wife, Laura Keppeler, filed for an emergency domestic violence restraining order while she was pregnant. In her filing, she alleged that at their home in Hawaii, he grabbed her, pinned her against a wall, and demanded she get an abortion. And the filing included quotes attributed to him, including, "If you have an abortion, then we can just go back to the way we were," and "Next time I see you, I don't want to see your stomach." Photos of bruises were submitted with the paperwork as well. Not long after that, the story took another turn because the couple reached a settlement and the restraining order was dropped, with reports saying Laura received $10 million, and she later publicly framed it as an emotionally charged fight over a phone. That kind of ending can look tidy from the outside, but inside a workplace, those moments do not vanish. They linger. They shape what people think they can get away with and what they think they have to tolerate. Then the franchise hit its next wall in March 2023 when Fleiss left after Warner Bros. Television completed an investigation tied to employee complaints. Variety reported that the investigation involved allegations of bullying and resistance to diversity, and sources described staffers feeling punished for pushing the show to cast more diverse contestants, including an alleged comment that minorities don't get ratings. Fleiss responded with a statement that included the line, "Times have certainly changed, and I'd have to say we didn't keep up with the pace of those changes." For a moment, it might have looked like a reset. But a reset only works when the next people bring a different kind of leadership. And the people who replaced Fleiss, showrunners Claire Freeland and Bennett Graebner, soon became the center of their own storm. In February 2025, reporting that summarized a Deadline exposé said crew members described a hostile workplace, with one quoted saying, "When Mike left, there was a sigh of relief. Never did we think that two of the people that would take over would make us wish that he was still here." And another calling it a dumpster fire right now. What made it worse was that the behind-the-scenes tension was starting to show on camera. Around the same period, The Independent reported claims tied to that same wave of reporting, including an allegation that Freeland approved a live television moment where Jen Tran was made to watch footage of her proposal to Devon Strader after revealing the engagement was already over, with a former producer alleging people in the control room were screaming to stop. And while viewers argued about whether the franchise had crossed a line, the crew was dealing with something more basic, their jobs. Parade reported that when The Bachelorette was put on an indefinite pause, staff were called in and told they would not be returning, putting more than 200 jobs in limbo. Even that was not the first time a disturbing story about the culture slipped into public view. Back in October 2017, former segment producer Becky Steenhoek sued Warner Bros. And several producers, alleging she was asked graphic sexual questions during JoJo Fletcher's 2016 season, including, "Is your vagina shaved?" and "Have you ever fondled testicles before?" She said that when she complained, she was told that this was simply how the industry worked. All of that is the human side of the decline, the part that happens in offices, control rooms, and private conversations. But the other side is brutal because it is so simple. The audience kept walking away. At the peak, it felt untouchable. The Bachelor's Season 2 finale in 2002 pulled nearly 26 million viewers, and it became the high-water mark people still point to when they talk about what the franchise used to be. Years later, it was still strong enough that an episode in Peter Weber's 2020 season could pull about 6.4 million viewers, with a rating around 1.8 among adults 18 through 49. But after that, the slide got steeper. TV series finale reports that season 26 averaged a 0.81 rating in adults 18 through 49 and 3.66 million viewers, and then season 27 averaged a 0.58 rating and 2.99 million viewers. Season 28 brought a small bounce, with season 28 averaging a 0.62 rating and 3.45 million viewers. Then the floor dropped again. In March 2025, the Los Angeles Times reported that Grant Ellis's season was hovering around 2.4 million average viewership. The spin-offs tell the same story, just with different numbers. Bachelor in Paradise used to be a real summer engine for the brand, and early on, it was pulling audiences in the 5 million range, with reporting in 2017 noting the 2014 series premiere averaged about 5.2 million viewers. Fast forward to 2025, and TV series finale lists Bachelor in Paradise Season 10 averaging 1.99 million viewers, which shows how far the ceiling has come down. The franchise did get a shot of fresh energy with The Golden Bachelor. Variety reported that across its fall run, Season 1 averaged 4.83 million viewers and about a 0.60 rating in adults 18 through 49. ABC later said the show averaged 10.4 million viewers per episode after the first 35 days across platforms, which is the kind of delayed viewing number networks love to brag about. But even that glow did not last, because ratings data published in a TV series finale Nielsen table shows Season 2 debuted at a 0.28 rating in adults 18 through 49. And then, just when it seemed like the franchise could at least keep limping forward, the newest crisis hit with a force the brand had not faced before. On March 19, 2026, multiple outlets reported that TMZ published a 2023 video tied to Taylor Frankie Paul, the announced lead for Season 22 of The Bachelorette, showing a violent altercation involving her ex-partner Dakota Mortensen with a child present. ABC and Disney pulled the season immediately, with a Disney spokesperson saying the decision came after a newly released video surfaced and that the focus was on supporting the family. The shocking part was not only the timing, just days before the planned March 22, 2026 premiere, but the fact that the season had already been filmed, making the cancellation an unusually extreme move. The money side of that decision is just as dramatic. People reported that scrapping an already completed season could cost tens of millions of dollars, and included details like estimates around $2 million per episode, and the knock-on effects for licensing, ads, and promotional deals. Sponsors reacted too, and Cinnabon publicly ended its collaboration, saying the situation no longer aligned with its brand values. So now the franchise is sitting in a strange place, where every problem feeds the next one. Leadership scandals make the workplace unstable. Workplace instability leaks onto the screen. Viewers get tired and leave. Lower numbers raise the pressure, and under pressure, the show makes harsher choices that create the next backlash. Even so, ABC has not been talking like it wants to bury the entire universe. In May 2025, Disney Entertainment Television President Craig Erwich said the Bachelor universe was still important to them, and he stressed that they would only roll out installments when they meet the bar they expect. And that is the real tension in the story right now. The franchise still knows how to make noise, but it has also become a machine that keeps stepping on its own foot. And every time it does, fewer people stick around to watch the recovery.